Welcome back, learner, to today's deep dive. Usually when we look at corporate acquisitions, they follow a very predictable, almost sterile script.
Right. Yeah, the lawyers drop the papers, the executives shake hands, and everyone just plays nice to protect the bottom line.
Exactly. It is a highly choreographed dance because the singular goal is to just get the deal across the finish line without spooking the shareholders, especially when there are, hundreds of millions of dollars sitting on the table.
Which is exactly what makes Dave Portnoy's behavior in January of 2020 so completely baffling to the traditional corporate world.
Oh, it's wild. So Portnoy was on the verge of closing this $450 million acquisition deal with Penn National Gaming.
Yeah, a massive, massive transaction.
Right. We are talking about a deal that would instantly vault his personal net worth past the $200 million mark.
Generational wealth. I mean, that's the kind of payout that founders literally dream about from day one.
Right. So he gets on the phone with a high-level executive from the Chernin Group. That's the firm that previously bought a majority stake in Barstool. And he threatens to blow up the entire negotiation.
Just completely torpedo it.
Yeah. He is screaming at this executive, threatening to just walk away from a $500 million payday.
And the sticking point wasn't even his own compensation. That's the crazy part. It was about his co-host, Dan Katz, who goes by Big Cat.
Right.
Portnoy felt that Katz wasn't being properly rewarded with equity in the sales structure. And he basically issued this nuclear ultimatum. He was like, either fix Big Cat's slice of the pie or the entire Penn National deal dies today.
Okay, let's unpack this. Why would a notoriously ruthless businessman risk a $500 million payday over a point of loyalty to a co-host?
It sounds totally irrational on the surface.
It really does. So to answer that, we have to look past the surface level lore of Barstool Sports. Our mission today for you, the learner, is to dissect the underlying mechanics of this media empire.
We really want to explore how this localized, struggling, gambling newspaper weaponized controversy to just fundamentally redefine internet culture.
Right, and their digital business models too. So to truly understand that 2020 ultimatum, we have to rewind the clock to March 2003, to a kitchen table in Swampscott, Massachusetts.
A very humble beginning.
Yeah. Dave is this 26-year-old former software salesman. The dot-com bubble has completely burst. He's carrying significant gambling debts and, well, he needs a lifeline.
So he sits down with his dad, Mike Portnoy, and asks for his $25,000 grad school fund.
Which is a bold move.
Very. And not for tuition, obviously. He pitches his dad on a free local sports and gambling newspaper.
Which, at first glance, seems like a terrible idea.
Oh, an awful idea. The Boston media market was absolutely dominated by heavyweights. You had the Boston Globe, the Boston Herald. They had massive budgets, printing presses, legacy distribution.
But Portnoy spotted this structural weakness in those legacy papers. Because for almost 2 decades, Boston sports teams had been losing. And the prominent writers had adopted this overly critical, almost antagonistic tone toward the city's teams.
Yeah, they were writing from the ivory tower, basically.
Exactly. And Portnoy hated that disconnect. He wanted a publication written by the common man for the common man. But the real genius here was the format he chose.
Right. By making it a free alternative weekly paper, he could exploit this massive federal blind spot.
Explain that a bit, because that's a crucial business mechanic here.
Yeah, so the federal government heavily restricted offshore sports books from advertising in traditional paid media or national television.
But a free, localized newspaper handed out on subway platforms.
Exactly. It fell right into a regulatory gray area.
Right.
Portnoy knew that offshore casinos, places like Party Poker, were desperate for American eyeballs.
And they were willing to pay a premium for it.
Oh, absolutely. He literally pitched his dad by claiming he had already sold a year's worth of ads to these offshore sites.
Fake it till you make it, right? So he secures the 25 grand, but having a brilliant monetization loophole does not magically solve your supply chain.
Not at all.
The reality of running this physical paper was hilariously grim. He didn't have a logistics team. Dave was hand-delivering these papers out of his beaten-up 1992 Plymouth minivan.
The minivan. The suspension was so destroyed from the sheer weight of the newsprint that it actually scraped the pavement as he drove.
It's just a great visual. He was waking up at 4:30 in the morning to drop papers at distribution bins he bought himself.
Yeah, and he'd stand at subway stations screaming at commuters just to get the physical product into their hands.
Looking at the sources, there's this deeply humbling detail. He's at the LOYT station in Cambridge, right? And he bends down to stuff papers into a bin and completely rips his pants.
Just completely tears them.
Yeah, the fabric just rips in front of a completely silent crowd of morning commuters.
And because he had zero staff, he started writing under fake bylines to create this illusion of a legitimate corporate masthead.
Right, he was Joe Houston, he was Blue Velvet.
He was even writing a female love advice column under the name L. Murphy.
Which is just so funny to think about. And they attempted live events to build community early on, which were equally disastrous.
Oh yeah, he threw a March Madness party at a local tavern, blasted it all over the paper, and exactly one person showed up.
One guy.
Just one guy sitting alone at a bar. Dave called it the darkest day of his life.
But okay, here's what I really want to push back on. He was basically writing internet-style, highly opinionated blog posts, but printing them on physical paper.
Right.
In 2003, the internet was widely accessible. He had literally just worked in software sales. Why handcuff yourself to the physical grind of print media when the digital world was right there?
Well, it really comes down to the immaturity of the digital ad market at that specific time. The infrastructure to monetize hyper-niche local web traffic just wasn't there yet. Yeah, the offshore gambling ads paid for the printing. But to actually survive and pay his own rent, he needed local physical advertisers. The bars, the restaurants, the clubs in Boston.
Which completely explains why he started putting local models on the cover in 2004.
Precisely. It was a physical lure for local nightlife advertisers. He had to conquer the localized physical world to build a cash reserve before he could ever dream of digital scale.
But hand-delivering thousands of papers was literally breaking his back and his Plymouth minivan. To scale, they needed a megaphone that didn't require physical distribution.
Right. And that pivot comes in 2005. A programmer named Ian White reaches out to Dave. Up until this point, the Barstool website was literally just static PDFs of the physical newspaper.
So clunky.
Very. So White volunteers to upgrade the backend, allowing Dave to easily type and post text in real time.
And that server upgrade changed the entire trajectory of the company. Dave didn't have to wait for the weekly print run to react to sports news anymore.
Exactly. He started posting random thoughts throughout the day. The newspaper guy officially became a blogger.
And the real breakthrough for this digital megaphone drops in September 2005. A popular Boston sports radio host named John Dennis leaves a completely unhinged, expletive-filled voicemail for a younger rival.
Threatening him over his daughter, actually.
Yeah, it was bad. And Portnoy somehow gets his hands on the raw audio and uploads it directly to barstoolsports.com.
Naturally, the traditional radio station panicked. They demanded he take it down immediately.
And a traditional media outlet would have complied, right? Just to avoid a legal battle with a larger corporation.
Right, but Portnoy completely dug his heels in and refused. He realized that the fight itself was the content.
Here's where it gets really interesting. By refusing to back down, he fully embraced this WWE-style heel persona.
Totally.
He realized that fighting the establishment publicly generated far more traffic than just writing about the Red Sox. And once he saw the raw power of internet traffic, he leaned heavily into hypersexualized, locker room-style content to manipulate the algorithms of the era.
Yeah, they added a local smoke show of the day feature. They hired writers to scour the internet for pictures of attractive college women. What's fascinating here is the underlying distribution mechanic.
Because this was long before Instagram or algorithmic social media feeds.
Exactly. The organic growth was completely decentralized. By posting local college girls, fraternity brothers, and college kids were constantly emailing the links to each other.
Wow, so Barstool essentially hijacked college email networks to build a massive free distribution pipeline fueled entirely by young male readers.
Yep. But that growth strategy carried staggering real-world risks. The sources detail how fathers would physically show up at the house of Dave's girlfriend, Renee, screaming and threatening him over photos of their daughters.
That is terrifying, and the legal exposure was even worse. When they eventually expanded the blog to New York City, a writer named Kevin Clancy, who goes by KFC, wrote a blog about a man losing a lottery ticket.
Right.
Clancy jokingly headlined the post, calling the man a Jersey City pedophile, which is an absolutely insane legal risk to take for a joke.
Oh, it's reckless. And it almost ended the company. The man sued Barstool for $100 million for defamation.
100 million?
Yeah, and the only reason Barstool survived was a miraculous technicality. The plaintiff missed the statute of limitations to file the final paperwork.
That is wild. Looking at those sources, it just seems totally irrational to keep publishing things that get you investigated, sued, or physically threatened. Like, why not just temper the content and protect the business?
Because Portnoy recognized a fundamental shift in media economics. Think about traditional media like the Globe. They had massive overhead. Pensions, printing presses, delivery trucks.
Right.
They had to be safe to protect their wide corporate ad base. Barstool had virtually zero overhead. Their cost structure allowed them to be hyper-niche.
Okay, that makes sense.
Portnoy realized that on the early internet, controversy was the most efficient SEO strategy. They actively weaponized the establishment's hatred.
So every time a traditional newspaper wrote a hit piece about Barstool, it drove thousands of curious readers directly to their site.
Exactly. Where they converted into fiercely loyal fans.
But digital traffic only pays the bills if you have advertisers. And major blue-chip corporate sponsors were absolutely terrified of their smut-heavy content.
Yeah, they wouldn't touch it.
Right. So they had this massive, rowdy online community, but a severe bottleneck in digital monetization. To convert that attention into actual cash, Barstool had to drag the internet back into the physical world.
Which forces their pivot to live events. They needed a revenue stream they could control directly. So they started testing the waters with a concert series called Stoolapalooza.
Featuring a local rapper named Sam Adams.
Yeah.
Right.
And the crowds were completely feral. At UMass Amherst, the event got so chaotic that police deployed pepper spray and Portnoy was officially banned from the campus.
Oh, wow.
But despite the chaos, the economics worked. He walked away with a six-figure profit.
But Portnoy has a gambler's psychology. He took that massive profit and bet literally all of the company's savings on a massive expansion called the Back to Stool Tour.
Yeah, he booked expensive artists like Mac Miller and Mike Posner at massive venues.
And it was a spectacular failure.
Oh, it bombed.
The artists showed up late or just didn't care. The crowds didn't materialize the same way, and Barstool lost six figures. It wiped out their cash reserves entirely.
It was so bad that Dave was left entirely broke. He actually accepted a regular corporate sales job just to survive.
I still can't believe that part.
Though to his credit, he abandoned that job on his very first day. He went out to lunch and just never went back to the office.
That is such a Dave Portnoy move. He just refused to let the empire die. And then this massive lifeline appears. DraftKings approaches them.
Right. They want to advertise, specifically targeting fraternity guys. And this sparks a revelation for Dave. Why pay massive booking fees for unreliable live musicians?
So they launched the Barstool Blackout Tour. It was essentially a traveling rave, no live bands, just EDM tracks, blacklights, foam machines, and massive CO2 cannons.
It's brilliant because they vertically integrated the whole thing. They rented the venues, sold the tickets directly to their readers, and kept all the VIP revenue.
It was a brilliantly efficient business model. Financially, it completely saved the company. They were clearing upwards of $250,000 a night.
Yeah, it's like they took the chaotic, completely unfiltered energy of a web-form comment section and locked it inside a physical nightclub.
That's the perfect analogy, but you can't put thousands of intoxicated college kids in a dark room without consequences. At shows in New Jersey and Long Island, multiple attendees were hospitalized for severe alcohol poisoning.
Yeah, and the mainstream media pounced on that. They aggressively dubbed Barstool the face of underage drinking and EDM danger.
The Blackout Tour proved Barstool could mobilize thousands of people in real life. But that exact physical mobilization is what finally caught the attention of organized activists and authorities. And learner, as we get into this next era of the company, I need to add a crucial note here. We have to talk about some highly sensitive and politically charged stuff in the sources regarding sexism and assault. We aren't here to take sides or endorse any of these posts, but we absolutely have to look at them impartially to understand why this brand became so polarizing and how that polarization became the actual engine of their business model.
Yeah, it's essential for understanding the mechanics. The cultural collision really reached a boiling point in 2012. A protest group formed called Knockout Barstool, led by a Northeastern University student named Anna Stembor.
Seymour's group methodically highlighted the highly offensive jokes Portnoy had been publishing for years. We're talking about posts claiming that if a woman is a size 6 and wearing skinny jeans, it implies consent because the jeans are hard to take off.
Yeah.
In another, he explicitly joked that if a woman passes out at a blackout party, it's a gray area.
And the protesters argued this went far beyond edgy comedy. They stated it actively perpetuated rape culture and normalized sexual assault. They organized physical protests, marching with megaphones and demanding that universities completely disassociate from the Barstool brand and shut down the blackout tours.
Now, in the normal corporate world, a CEO facing that kind of organized, highly publicized boycott issues an immediate public apology. They fire the writer, they pledge to do better, they try to appease the advertisers.
But Portnoy did the exact opposite.
He went on the national television show Inside Edition, wearing this ridiculous purple starfish lacrosse jersey of all things, and point blank defended the posts to the interviewer, claiming they were just funny jokes.
And that wasn't an isolated incident of touching the third rail. In 2011, Dave posted a paparazzi photo of Tom Brady's naked 2-year-old son walking on a beach.
Ugh.
And he added a highly inappropriate, crude joke about the toddler's anatomy.
The real-world fallout from the Tom Brady blog was absolute devastation. WEEI Radio immediately fired him from his weekly guest spot. The Massachusetts State Police literally showed up at his Dorchester apartment to investigate complaints.
Angry locals figured out where he lived and left a dildo on his front door.
Even Howard Stern, a broadcaster who,
To his readers, yielding to mainstream pressure or corporate advertisers was seen as selling out. He built the brand on anti-establishment defiance.
So if he apologized to appease Coors Beer, he would breach the core tenet of authenticity with his loyalists.
Exactly. He made a calculated business decision that his niche audience's fierce loyalty was ultimately more profitable long-term than the mainstream media's temporary outrage.
And just as traditional critics were writing Barstool off as purely toxic, an event occurred that revealed a completely unexpected, highly organized mechanism within this community.
Yeah, in April 2013, the Boston Marathon bombing paralyzed the city.
In the absolute chaos of the manhunt, Barstool inadvertently transformed into a massive crowdsourced news hub.
Yeah.
Because Dave had spent a decade building this deeply engaged, hyper-local community, his stoolies were sending him live police scanner audio and fan-submitted videos from their phones in real time.
The mechanics of their publishing speed gave them an incredible advantage here. They were posting updates and videos of the Watertown shootout faster than CNN or Fox News.
Yeah.
They bypassed the traditional editorial bottlenecks and beat the massive news networks at their own game using decentralized journalism.
But the truly shocking pivot was how they deployed that network after the dust settled. There was a local man, Mark Fucariel, who lost his leg in the blast. Portnoy activated his audience, asking them to buy Boston Strong merchandise.
Right.
They raised a staggering $250,000 specifically for Fucariel.
There is a remarkable piece of source material showing Portnoy handing the check to Fucariel in his hospital bed. Fucariel initially thinks the check is for $2,500.
Because that would be a normal amount to expect.
Right. When he realizes it's $250,000, he's just completely speechless.
And it wasn't a one-off. Barstool utilized this charitable engine to raise massive funds for the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge with the Freitz family and poured money into funds for wounded warriors and fallen police officers.
But, to sustain both the smut, the sports, the charity, and the live events, the internal corporate culture was notoriously grueling.
Oh, yeah. By 2014, they had consolidated operations into a physical office in Milton, Massachusetts. Calling it an office is highly generous, honestly.
Very generous.
It was a defunct dentist's office. They had random sinks in the middle of rooms. There was no air conditioning during the summer. Squirrels actively lived in the walls, and employees documented days where it literally rained stink bugs from the fluorescent ceiling lights.
Sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah.
They branded this environment Milton Tough. Portnoy was a demanding, often ruthless boss who required absolute loyalty and a nonstop content churn.
Yeah.
He famously duct-taped an intern named Hank Lockwood to the wall as a punishment for a mistake. He verbally tortured his employees on camera.
But the counterweight to that abuse was the compensation. He was paying his lead writers $60,000 salaries at a time when other digital media startups were literally paying freelance pennies.
And this environment is where the most crucial addition to the team thrived. Portnoy hired Dan Big Cat Katz to run the Chicago expansion. Katz was the strategic bridge the company desperately needed. He shared Dave's comedic timing and sports gambling obsession, but Katz had a much more universally appealing advertiser-friendly persona.
He was the vital counterbalance to Dave's abrasive edge. So what does this all mean for you, learner? When you analyze this gritty Milton Tough culture and the live rundowns they broadcasted over terrible Skype connections.
Oh, the connection was always so bad.
Always. It proved a profound shift in consumer behavior. Audiences were actively rejecting polished, focus-grouped corporate media. They craved raw authenticity. They wanted to see the messy reality, even if it meant watching a boss legitimately scream at his staff over a broken internet router.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Barstool proved a new economic law of the internet. A highly engaged, emotionally invested niche community is exponentially more monetizable than a massive passive audience.
Right.
They didn't need 1 million casual readers. They needed 100,000 absolute fanatics.
Which brings us perfectly back to our opening question. The year is 2020. Dave Portnoy is screaming at a Chernin executive, threatening to blow up a $450 million deal with Penn National Gaming over Big Cat's equity. Why risk $500 million?
Because Portnoy fully understood the mechanics of his own empire. Big Cat wasn't just an employee, he was the engine of, pardon my take, which was the wildly popular podcast that served as the advertiser-safe bridge to mainstream revenue.
That makes total sense.
Yeah, Big Cat made Barstool palatable to a publicly traded gambling corporation. If Dave allowed the suits to screw Katz out of his equity, he would break the absolute core tenet of Milton Tough loyalty.
The entire culture, the very asset Penn National was buying, would collapse from the inside out.
Exactly. Portnoy weaponized his own payout to protect the structural integrity of his company.
It has been a wild journey to unpack with you, learner. From a desperate $25,000 loan to exploit a federal gambling loophole, handing out papers in a ruined minivan, to building an internet juggernaut on a precarious tightrope of smut, relentless controversy, crowdsourced journalism, and fierce loyalty.
It perfectly illustrates how the internet completely dismantled the cost structures of traditional publishing, Rewarding those who understood that attention, no matter how controversial, is the ultimate currency.
As we wrap up today's deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. As the digital media landscape continues to evolve, Barstool blurred the lines between performance and reality. Dave Portnoy openly played El Presidente, the WWE-style heel who refused to apologize to anyone.
Right.
But over 2 decades of broadcasting his life, the character and the man seemingly became completely indistinguishable. In today's creator economy, where audiences demand your raw, authentic self 24/7. Wait, is it even possible to wear a mask for your audience without it permanently becoming your actual face?
That is a deeply complex question for anyone building a brand today.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the sources. Keep questioning the mechanics of the media landscapes you consume, and we will catch you next time.